Welcome to our APAC Partner News video series. I'm Nigel Lee, Senior Vice President of APAC at Ingenico, and this is our fourth episode of our APAC Partner interview series, where we put our partners in the spotlight to share their experience, share their expertise, and give us some of their perspective on payments and commerce trends in their markets. This week we've been at the Singapore FinTech Festival, and so we have many of our partners here, and today our partner Premise is a partner-led embedded banking platform based out of Manila. And Ingenico is partnering with Premise to provide integrated digital payment solutions and also financial services to micro merchants, delivering cashless inclusion across the Philippines. I'm thrilled to have the founder and the CEO here, the founder being Gary Repchuk and the CEO of Premise being Sebastian Romberg, to join me today. So welcome to you both.
Thank you for having us.
No,
happy to be here.
Our pleasure, and thank you very much for joining us at the Singapore FinTech Festival earlier in this week, which has been a fantastic event, and it's been great to have you there.
Yeah.
My first question, I think, will be for Gary, as the founder of Premise. Can you tell me a little bit about Premise itself, about the thought process behind it, and about what embedded banking financial services really is all about?
Thank you. Be happy to, Nigel. It goes back a long way. You know, I come from the banking world. I'm a Canadian banking executive, and I've taken all those years of experience in operations, IT, audit, security, and mostly issuing and acquiring from the end of the bank view. And what we realized in the bank is we like things very simple. We like things to happen, plug in and go. And our world today is changing, especially, you look at the new line of Android terminals require different levels of certification, different levels of security. So as I left the banking world and started working in the payment area, I realized that there was nothing in the world that we live in that bridged banks into the new technology. So what we did was we went ahead and decided to build it. Maybe a little ahead of our time, but for the most part, the premise was there that we had to develop and provide something so the banks can jump into the new technology like the Axiom 8000 and the SoftPOS from Ingenico, and it would be business as normal. So that entailed us building from scratch a switch, a merchant management system, and a terminal management system fully integrated that would allow us to easily certify and integrate the new technologies like Axiom, so that in the end, our client had a very easy decision to make. It was basically a white label turnkey, and it may look easy for them, but trust me, as you know, the world is payments, nothing's easy, but our goal was to try and make it for them that it's just, oh, I know I can do that. I can just give you my messaging spec and life will be good.
Yeah. Well, look, and I guess that, so what you highlight there, I think, is that payments, which has never been really straightforward, it's always been a complicated value chain, but it's just got super complicated over the last 4 or 5 years. And it's so complicated that banks themselves, I guess, are no longer the right people to be able to carry out some of these services.
We realized that, and our goal was to own every aspect of that whole value chain so a bank would feel comfortable. Because as you know, the more hops you have, the more expensive it is, the more fingers are pointed, the more difficult the integration is. So by doing everything and being able to white label it for our client, it takes away some of the nervousness that they may have shown previously.
Yep. Oh, well, it's great, and brave move to build it from scratch. But I think sometimes being able to see the future is essential, and taking those brave steps. I'm just thinking, this week we did a joint press release at the Singapore FinTech Festival, and talking about our collaboration together, and talking a little bit about what Premise is all about. And within that press release was the construct of cashless inclusion. And frankly, being able to deal with inclusion in somewhere like the Philippines is obviously a really important issue. But do you want to maybe, Sev, talk to me a little bit about what cashless inclusion really comprises?
Yeah, so the Philippine market itself is structured so that the banks really only service a relatively small sliver of the tier 1, tier 2 socioeconomic graphic. And that's from both the consumer side, but also the merchant side. And you know this, but we see the same things across the rest of ASEAN and other developing countries around the world. What it means when you have financial services only going to that level of companies and merchants and consumers is that the rest of the economy is more or less underbanked or unbanked. So right now in the Philippines, about 45% of the market is fully unbanked and 65% is underbanked. And so what our role is in the context of what Gary envisioned, and in many ways what Ingenico has envisioned and what we've aligned on over the last months and especially over the last week here at the festival, is the idea that we can sit between the banks and deliver our systems on a platform in an embedded manner with our clients who service these merchants,
right,
and make it very, very easy for them to deliver financial solutions in a previously cash-only business.
Yeah. When we talk about the merchants that you're describing, really, I think if I remember our discussion, you're talking more about the small stores, the sari Kirana stores in India, very, very basic, sometimes unregistered, I think, as you mentioned.
So right now, our sort of flagship showcase client right now serves about 200,000 of these micro FMCGs, so micro and small FMCGs. Out of those 200,000, 90% of them are actually completely unregistered, and almost all of the business that they do is completely cashless.
Right.
And in terms of gross merchandise volume, in a year, that group alone is processing about $1.2 billion, almost all cash.
Yeah.
Right. If you want to include that segment into the cashless environment, you have to, one, be able to deploy the kinds of rails, the kinds of payment rails and payment solutions that Gary built, but also in the context of the new generation of Android devices that's delivered by Ingenico, the DX8000, as well as the soft POS. It makes it very easy to deploy in any sort of environment, including these cashless environments.
Well, and I guess simplicity for the merchants themselves is an important part of that, and the Android interface clearly helps with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I guess also it's not just about them being able to make payment. There's much more of an ecosystem play that is important for them to be able to add value to their own stores. Do you want to maybe talk a little bit about what that comprises in your mind?
Yeah, absolutely. So you said earlier, it's a payments-led embedded finance solution. So we start with payments, which means that when we onboard our merchants through our partner clients, we're able to run a proper KYC. There's some regulatory work that has to happen with central banks and so forth. But in our context, we're able to meet the baseline requirements to be able to issue corporate wallets and in some cases even proper bank accounts, right?
Well, and that in itself is something that I think is kind of interesting, because I think people just assume that making a payment is a straightforward process. Give something to a merchant, that can happen. They forget about the fact that there are regulatory components around eKYC and the necessity to do that. And when you're talking to all of those small merchants, I guess that's almost the hygiene you have to be able to deal with to start with.
I mean, it's the minimum for us, right? So as long as we can get that KYC in the door, we save that KYC. So we now know exactly who that merchant is, where they are. The central bank's satisfied with it. The merchant acquirers are satisfied with it. The wallets, the card schemes. But to your point about ecosystem building, right? When we hold that and we start seeing the transactional volume through our platforms, we now have the ability to safely and securely store that data, but share it on a permission basis from the merchant with third-party financial institutions. So that's lenders, insurance companies, microfinance institutions. And now we can bring them into the platform at the merchant level. And we can do that very easily through the PPaaS environment, very easily through the Ingenico's Axiom DX8000 or the soft POS.
And I guess as well, if I think about the things that are important to merchants, all merchants, small or large, one of them is clearly, I want to be able to sell more. I'd like more things to be able to sell. I want to be able to get paid for it. And I kind of want to be able to improve what I do with my business. And so I guess the ecosystem that you talk about falls into each of those categories a little. I'm wondering, for example, are there ecosystem partners that can help your merchants sell more?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Gary has
the interesting thing when we started this, everybody's tried to go through and bring in the merchants living out on the edge. And for the most part, we've tried, everybody tries, and always fails. What we've done different here is with our partner. We've tied up right at the brand level. So these are major global brands who really want to understand and who never really knew who their end clients were. So through the brand, through the wholesaler, through the sari-sari store, and 20 million Filipinos that are served on a daily basis, we now know geographically to pinpoint where these merchants are.
Right.
So, and the brands have bought in first that they want everything digital. Before, everybody forgot about the end brand because they had always come and want cash or whatever the case may be. Now that they're the ones who are driving the adoption, we're able to take it down the line. And so now there's value and there's loyalty programs and everything else that comes about it. So that's really, I wouldn't say it's made it easy, but it's solved the issue because everybody always worked at the far edge and tried to make adoption happen. We went to the people who truly wanted it and were willing to pay.
That is interesting because I think you're pointing to the fact that actually, curiously enough, whilst financial services is almost the hygiene piece of that, the reality is that's not what the merchants fundamentally need. They need to be able to do other things, and you've involved with your partner the people who really care about things that can happen at those stores. So it's, but I'm talking of a partnership.
Okay.
So do you want to give me some view as to why you chose to work with us as Ingenico? What do you think was compelling about coming to work with us? What's been helpful?
I can get into a long story, and it was kind of funny, and because we were adamant that we wanted our platform embedded within Ingenico. And it took us a little while to get there, and I think we all realized the value. We kind of stuck to our guns, and it came through. But absolute most important thing that we saw, we've dealt with, I won't name, but all the major terminal manufacturers.
Right.
My team is well versed in it. I think there's about 16 different terminals that have been integrated within our system. The Ingenico support, the videos, the tutorials, the documentation, the staff here in Singapore, unbelievable. So what we went through, what would have taken months, and maybe more than months, for the initial part, within 2 weeks, we're fully integrated, having transactions flowing, making them work. It was, for us, it was, mind you, we built the system in order
to be able to do that.
In order to be able to do that. But we've never been able to because the level of support. And I think when Sev talked about the alignment of strategies, not only is the Ingenico brand strategy, we can all go through and put out a brand strategy, but to carry it right down to the level of the engineers supporting us, we haven't seen that before. So the part of what we saw dealing with Ingenico is the 40-year brand, and we were thrilled to be able to be mentioned in the same breath as you, but we had to make sure that that value chain was able to be passed on, and I thank you and your staff here and globally who've gone through and supported us through this phase to be able to deliver this much needed technology, this financial technology to the edge where people wouldn't have even dreamed of doing it, and I think we'll be able to accelerate that in a very short period of time.
Well, first of all, it's the partnership opportunity for both of us is terrific, and I think we know that it's our mission to be able to change the industry, the point of commerce everywhere, and we can only do that through partnership. So I'm very pleased to hear that the way in which we interacted to be able to get you to become a partner was easy. Because that's a message that I think is important for us to hear, and it's terrific that it's the reality, because I think that's going to help us ensure that we can bring in more partners in the right places. But I think the other thing you point out about inclusion, about the mission that you have, is really important, because not only are we together able to go and hopefully create this infrastructure in the Philippines that can touch everybody, but we're doing things that are for profit, but we're doing things that are actually doing a lot of good. And I think that in and of itself, not just in the Philippines, But as you know, you're starting there. But for us, Ingenico is in all the markets in ASEAN.
Yeah.
We have a great opportunity to do things together in many places.
Great point. And the brands for the fast-moving consumer goods have already knocked on the doors and said, listen, we like this, we like where it's going. Do you know that we also are in every other one of the Asian countries? And so we're thrilled that we both share that same view to be able to replicate it. And as I didn't mention before, but we built everything on the cloud.
Yeah.
So to be able to replicate that instance and put it in another country, as long as we have a friendly bank, we're laughing and we'll be able to get those services out as quick as possible.
Yeah, we'll help you find friendly banks, that's for sure.
I want to make a comment on your previous question about what specifically is it about in Ingenico. And Gary's right, the process of integration has been unbelievable. The support from the team has been unbelievable. The reality is that the environment that you guys have provided for us is the right environment, and it's a dynamic environment. Yeah. So the PPaaS environment with on the new generation Android devices, the Axiom, as well as the soft POS is something that allows us to very easily align our systems, deploy it at the platform level, get services out to the merchants, but it's flexible enough for us to put any sort of value-added service through that.
Yep.
So financial instruments, I was talking about lending earlier, but it really doesn't stop there. There's when we talk about what's required by merchants, right? They need to increase their sales. Yes, you can sell more fast-moving consumer good products, but there's all sorts of other business lines that can be delivered to the merchant. So it's not just about making them your customer, it's about growing their business. There are cash in, cash out services, remittance services, all sorts of businesses that expand their ability to earn and make them a better ecosystem partner, both for us, for the fast-moving consumer goods brands, but as well as the financial institutions.
No, I think that is a super interesting point. I was going to ask you a little bit about what you think about the ecosystem in your mind, and I think what's interesting is you typically don't hear in the merchant acquiring industry an organization that's dealing with merchants talking about how you're going to help them grow their business, how you're going to add new revenue lines to them. You tend to hear about them, I think, wondering what they can get from them, which is a very different mindset. And I think that's going to be frankly the secret of Premise's success, is enabling that to happen within the Philippines environment.
And it's, listen, one of the unintended benefits of dealing with Ingenico just happened this morning. We met a client of yours who has worked and developed a whole embedded application that will fit in, and it's all to do with crypto. So from that point of view, we were missing that piece. So we have the global interactions, and then we have local, but we didn't have that bridge that we needed to be able to place on. But now when we go through, we can put that application on every terminal for zero cost, and then allow that merchant to be able to provide better value to the local players. That's fantastic.
No, I kind of love that. I mean, this is a way I hope that Ingenico, PPaaS, the infrastructure that we build across really globally, can become a bit of a language that everybody can start to use and become partners by accident with each other. Because I think, again, it's difficult for people to discover where that value might lie in the value chain unless we're able to bring partners together. And that's the only way we're going to be able to succeed with the infrastructure we build and enable as the technology partner. So look, it's been great having you join me today. Thank you very, very much for joining us on this 4th edition.
So happy to be here.
And it was great to have you at the Singapore FinTech Festival as well. So thanks very much indeed.
Thank you, Nigel.
Thank you, Nigel. Look forward to bigger and better things.
Indeed.
Appreciate it.
All of ASEAN. Well, thank you, Gary Usev, for joining us here today as part of Ingenico's APAC News. I'm sure you'll hear more from Premise soon, and we wish you great success in your journey and your partnership with us. For more information on Premise, visit premisefintech.com. And to viewers, thank you very much for watching. And for more information on us, Ingenico, visit us at ingenico.com. And you can follow us on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Look forward to seeing you soon.